Hello, so today I thought we'd make some little embellishments suitable for vintage journals or tags or whatever you want to use them for. They are actually recycled slide mounts. I used to do a lot of photography and we used to use slide film, which you would get back from the processors and then mount into these. They came ready mounted, but if you wanted to crop anything off or whatever, you would buy these, crop off what you wanted. So I have quite a few of these lying about, and I thought rather than throw them out, they would be quite nice to recycle. So it's quite an easy process, and you can do them as simple or as complicated as you want. You can add as many effects as you want. I've got some crackle paste on here, some stamping, some little stamped images that I've added on, and quite a lot of inking. And then there's two options for doing this in the centre, which makes them look as if they are the slides which have decayed a little bit. So I'll pop those up there. So we start with our slide mounts, and we're going to use Heavy Gel Medium by DecoArt. Just get a brush. Strong PVA might do it, but I prefer to use the gel medium. I think it's better. So you're basically going to just completely cover your slide mount with the gel medium. I'm going to do two different ones. I'm going to do a vintage dictionary page that's sort of quite a vintage colour, and I'm going to do a white one and then ink it up. Now I'm going to have my photographs this way, so portrait rather than landscape. So I think I'm going to do, it doesn't really matter if you read the words or not, so I'm going to pop it that way down. This blank bit here isn't going to show, and this line isn't going to show. Snip a bit off there. Basically going to leave enough just to wrap over. What I'm also going to do with a small pair of scissors is go across corners like that, so that it isn't as bulky on the corners. Put that out of the way. I'm also going to cut corner to corner with a craft knife. Because then these bits I can put to the inside. Before I got glue everywhere, I'll just cut a little bit of that off, because these two bits are narrower. We don't want it to go right to the other side. So another lot of gel medium all the way around again. You can do it in sections. I tend to put it all in all on at one go, and then it's on there. And just turn it from the right side to the wrong side and press onto your gel medium. Add a little bit more on the top just to make sure that it's going to stick. Now Now it depends whether you want to see the back of these or not. I've inked the back of mine up, but I think they will go in on journal pages or tags, so you won't see the back. If you want to, if you're going to be doing something with them and you'll see the back, then make sure that you cover them properly at the back. It's a bit of a sticky job, is this, because you get gel medium on your fingers. You can always wear gloves if you want. So I've done the outside edges in, and then I'm doing these little bits out. So basically we're just covering our frame. And again up, and then out like that. And again, I didn't want to stick, that's it. And again out. Sometimes it takes a reasonable amount of gel medium to get it all to stick. So there we are. We've got our slide mount covered. Let's get any excess gel medium off. I won't do the other one with the white pages at the moment because it might make the video too long. Now if you wanted to, you could cover the back with more book pages if you want to use it so that you can see the back. What I tend to do is pop them on, cut round the middle bit, so that that's going to come away. I haven't gone particularly that far through with it. And then you would stick that on there and trim round all the way around, so that would cover the back up as well. In fact, I might as well do that. So plenty of gel medium. Because you've got some areas that are got recesses in, sort of like this, I put a reasonable amount of gel medium on there so that it'll stick. So stick that on there. Now ideally you would wait while this is stuck before you trim this off, but I'll do it now and then you'll get a better idea what it looks like. So I just trim round with a pair of scissors, and then you would probably do this on a craft mat so you weren't cutting through your craft sheet, but if this was dry it would cut a lot easier. it was dry it wouldn't ruckle as much like this. But yeah. If you've got any stray bits, you can just put a bit of gel medium and make sure that they lay flat. Actually, I haven't got that bit off. It needs to be off. I missed that bit. There we are. That's it. So we've got the front and the back covered. I'm going to put the lid on my gel medium and put my brush just in the water because then it won't set solid. Now, this is fairly boring, so I'm going to put some crackle paste on it. What I might do beforehand is just add a word. I've got this word discover, which I quite like. It was off the dictionary page at the top. And I just kept it because I quite like it. So I'm just going to trim it up a little bit. It won't be too deep. I think I'll probably put it at the top there. Maybe down there. No, maybe down the bottom would be better. And this will be okay stuck on with a little bit of just PVA glue. So PVA glue on the back. Stick our word on. Now, I've got Vintage Photo Distress Ink. I think everything's just about dry. Maybe could do with a bit longer, but we'll go with it. And I'm just going to ink the edges and the corners, just so that it gives it a little bit more something. And don't forget to do the inside edges. That's it. A bit more down the edge. So that looks a lot more grungy. By adding your Vintage Photo ink before you put your crackle medium on, your crackle paste on, when they put the crackle paste on, it actually, your Vintage Photo soaks through your crackle paste a little bit so that it just shows a little bit more. You can then, when it's dried, you can actually add some more ink on the top, but it looks really quite good if you add it first. I tend to just add it with my finger. So I don't think I want to cover up Discover, so I'm just going to go across that corner, down a little bit, and across that corner a little bit. I can go on to as little or as much as I want on. I've gone on to my word a little bit, so I'll go a little bit all the way around. This, the thicker you put it on, the bigger you get, cracks you get. If you put it on quite thin, you get quite small cracks. If you put it on thicker, you will get thicker cracks. So you see I've done quite a lot at the corners, not so much everywhere else. And don't forget to go across your edges as well. It does dry quite quickly if you're putting it on with your fingers. And it is quite messy. You can use a paintbrush if you want. So that I would set aside to dry, and once it's dry you'll be able to add a little bit of ink to the top of the crackles, because that makes them show up a little bit more. You see here it shows up a bit more because I've put a little bit more ink on. And you can go as dark or as light as you want. Put a little bit on or put a lot on. I'm going to put a bit more on there. So once that is dry, I will put one of these photographs in. These are Tim Holt's photo booth photos. Let's have a look and see which we like. Quite like her. So she will probably go in there. And what I will do is I will cut it to size. So I'll think, right, she's going there, like that. Cut so that it's the correct size for fitting at the back. Cut an extra little bit off because it's level with the edge. And once that is all dry, I'll glue her to the back. And if I wanted to completely finish the back, I could then glue a sheet of paper to match this on the back. So basically I could cover that with another piece of paper. So if you imagine her in there. I've added these little numbers, are just a stamp, and I've stamped them onto some tea stained paper, and then I've just glued those on. So I could put something like that there. I could also do some additional stamping, anywhere, some numbers or anything like that, whatever I wanted. And then to finish it off, once that is glued in there, I've used One Step Crackle on one of these and Crackle Glaze on the other. So the Crackle Glaze was on this one and the One Step Crackle was on there. The Crackle Glaze has a lot bigger cracks in it. The One Step Crackle has just got a few little ones. I didn't actually mind if it crackled or not. If it did, it was a bonus, but if it didn't, it's not a problem. But it just makes it look as if it is a slide in there, rather than just a photograph stuck in. If you hadn't got either of these products, what you could do is put a piece of acetate. Let's see if I've got a piece hanging about. Don't know if I have. Yeah. So I'll just move those out of the way. You could put a piece of acetate in, glue it on to the back, and then glue that on there. I actually like the distressed look of the two products I've used, but that's an alternative if you haven't got those. And then once those are dry, that's your slide mounts finished. Hello, so this is our finished slide mounts. They've dried. I've inked up the crackle paste so it shows up a little bit more. I just lightly brushed, very lightly brushed Vintage Photo over, and it highlights the crackles. Done one. There isn't a great deal of difference between the crackle glaze and the one step crackle. They both do more or less the same thing. I haven't got a real lot of crackles in these, but it's got a glaze, which is what I wanted. That one's got a little bit more crackling than the other. So I've got 3 more of those finished. This was the pale paper and this was the more vintage coloured paper, but because I've used ink you can't tell much difference. So that's those. This is a tag I created using one of the slide mounts that was finished. It's just recycled cardboard covered in music paper and then various different papers layered up. This is an embossed piece of I think it was tea stained paper originally, and it's just embossed, and then I've highlighted it with a little bit of Vintage Photo just applied with a sponge, which brings out the texture. You'll see on here we also have a couple of little glass embellishments, and this one. Now this is just a normal fuse. You get them in packs in the pound shop, about 6 or 8 in a pack for £1, and I just found a little bit of vintage book page that had the letter 2 on it and glued it on. I cut it so it fitted just between the 2 pieces of metal and just glued it on, inked it up, and then I've used that as an embellishment. These are just little glass pebbles that are sort of usually home decor, and all I did was get a little bit of vintage paper, apply gel medium on the back, glue it on. When it's completely dry, cut round it and just sand it a little bit. Not a lot unless it takes it off completely, but just sand it a little bit. So I'll just get one of those to show you. So it's just one of these little glass pebbles glued onto there. Then when it's dry, I cut round and just sand the edges. I've done different ones. This is part of a telephone directory, that's part of a book page, that's a stamped image, one of Tracy Evans' stamps, music paper, an old postage stamp. That looks rather nice. You can use whatever you've got, and you only need little scraps, so it doesn't matter if you've just got the tiniest little bit like a number from a book page, you can use it. So that's what those 2 are, and then I've just glued them on with gel medium. Got a couple of rusty paper clips just attached, and then a bit of string. So that's the sort of thing you can create once you've got your slide mounts. You could do all sorts of things with them. You could add them to envelopes for in journals, you could put them on the front of a journal, you could have a copy of an old family photograph in there. You could have a beach scene and add some shells, things like that on there. You can personalise them to however you want.